Estate Excellence podcast. Today's guest specializes in finding the right home for the right family. She has had a successful radio show, All Things Real Estate, for 12 years, which you can listen to every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on WBOB here in Jacksonville, Florida. She interviews many of the influential people here in Northeast Florida real estate. She is closing in on show 600. If I saw that in your bio,
yes.
That is amazing.
I'm excited.
She has over 2 decades of experience in Jacksonville real estate. Let's welcome one of the newest members of Engel and Volkers First Coast, Angela Walker, to the show.
Good morning.
Thank you
for having me here.
Thank you. And you've had me on twice on your show.
Absolutely.
And finally got you to come over here and talk about Angela.
Yay.
And what you've been doing. And I think there's a lot of listeners out there that hopefully will get some nuggets today from what we talk about, because we're going to dig deep into your ideology of real estate and so forth. You are native Jacksonian.
Can you believe it? Unicorn. Yeah, there aren't that many of us here, but I feel like I'm meeting more and more who have moved back, because it's a wonderful place to be. Jacksonville's amazing. Yeah,
there's so, it's not as glamorous as, Naples or something like that. I'd say that because my parents, when they originally moved to Florida in the early 90s, moved to Naples because, some of their friends were traveling from Cape Cod to there in the wintertime. So they were in a semi-retired, not retired yet, but the glamour stuff. But, coming here, there's so many things that you can do. If you're a boater, you're the beach, or you just like, hiking and trails and the activities going on, shows. There's just so much going on.
I feel like the Jaguars put us on the map, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would travel different places previously, and people go, "Where's Jacksonville, Florida?"
Yeah.
But once we got the Jaguars, they're like, "Oh, I know where that is. That's great. You're where the Jaguars are."
We were the flyover city. They're flying into Orlando and Miami.
Exactly. They were bypassing us big time. Yeah. Unless you were in the Navy, then you knew where we were, but otherwise, no.
You only knew what Jacksonville was if you drove on 95.
Yes.
And the road was zigzagged and swerved as you went through it. Then you went to Florida State.
I did.
What was your envision there as a young Angela, like for a career? What was your, at 19, 20 years old?
I wanted to go into psychology, I thought, or psychiatry. I wasn't quite sure. But then as I started taking the classes, I was like, oh, this is not for me at all. This is not what I want to do. And so I went and met with one of the deans and said, I feel like I'm in this weird spot, and I'm kind of got myself in, and I don't know what to do next. And he's like, okay, let's talk about what are you interested in?
Right.
So I ended up in economics, but I did it with an emphasis in demographics. So not so much in finance, but demographics.
Right.
And I had a minor in marketing. I love marketing. And so, honestly, those two things are perfect for real estate.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
I didn't envision I would be in real estate. I mean, my parents owned a car dealership. I actually thought I was going to be in the car dealership.
Right.
And I went to school with Carlotta Watson. I never dreamed I'd work for her dad. I always thought I worked for my dad. So that was kind of funny how it all turned out. I ended up at Watson.
Well, so your first big career job is at Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yes.
There.
Yes.
But were you using your degree and knowledge there at all?
No. Just wanted a job, needed a job. When I got right out of college, I actually started in a dress shop down in San Marco, and I loved it. And I like, sales is for me. I knew. And then I wasn't sure I wanted to stay there per se. And so I got a job at Blue Cross, just got a foot in the door kind of job,
right.
Customer service. And I felt like it wasn't the right fit, and I didn't know what to do from there. So I just kept like looking around, paying attention.
Staying in line.
Yes, yes. I worked for the Medicare. And so the interesting thing about Medicare is when you work there, you have to dummy down your education level, because the average education level of people at that time, we're going back 30 years, they were 7th grade level. So I had this college degree, and I'm having to write letters and dummying them down. And I was like, this is not for me. I'm in the wrong spot.
So writing letters to explain their coverage or something?
Like
right.
I was in the review department. So they would write in about whatever. And when their claim got denied. And so we'd have to explain why. And so some of them were form letters, but some of them you had to alter them. And I would get flagged all the time that I was above grade level.
Right.
And I was like, okay,
Right.
I need to get out of this department.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You would not think it, because I think today they just send the letter out and don't care whether you figure it out or not.
Well, but think about it. Today's seniors are more educated than they were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? They all have college degrees, so think about it.
Very good point. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So things have changed. It wouldn't be in that same circumstance as I was back then.
Yeah, because you're really, if you do a 30-year jump, you're looking at people who grew up maybe in the 60s and 70s, or education-wise, versus the Depressionary period, where a lot of them didn't even graduate from high school.
Exactly.
8th grade, had to go to work or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got into management there. That's what I did. I went into training. I love training. And so I went into a management piece. That's where I was when I finally decided to leave there. I had my third child, and I had 3 kids under 5 and a demanding husband. No offense. And, just in case he's watching. And, it was just a lot. And so my mom kept saying, just stop working. Take care of your own kids. By the time you pay daycare for all these people and whatever. So he's like, okay, I'll do that. Well, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I was with new moms and they wanted to talk about diapers and whatever. I was like, okay,
and you spent this year in the corporate world and business.
11 or 12 years in corporate, and so it was just not working. Mm-hmm. And part of what we had to do for me to get out of the job was we had to downsize our house. And so I had met this realtor who took us around, and she put our house up for sale, and then she helped me find the new house, and she just made it seem so fun. And so I was like, I want that job. I could do that job. I know I could. And so I didn't do anything about it right away because I wanted to be the stay-at-home mom and, do my best. Mm-hmm. But within about 8 months, I called her and I said, I need a job. I need to get out of my house. Tell me, can I do this?
I've had many guests on who've had bad experiences where like, I can do that better than that real estate agent did, ignored me, but you had a good experience.
Well, I did. I had a good experience, and we laughed a lot. So to me, that made me feel like that's what the job was, is it's getting quite personal with people and having fun, and which I have brought to my customers, actually. But there was a piece of it that she didn't do perfectly. And I don't want to say this because we're still friends. But the part that wasn't done perfectly is the house didn't suit us 4 or 5 years later. Right. So I had 3 kids and we bought a 3-bedroom house. So I put 2 girls together. Mm-hmm. Well, we chose never to move because we loved our neighborhood. We loved our neighbors. Like, it was awesome. But when my girls hit that stage of life, they should not be sharing a bedroom. Mm. We didn't have enough bedrooms. And so we didn't want to move, and we had to make alterations to the house we had. And it was in that moment that I thought, this is a shame. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm in the wrong spot and I can't get out. And so anyway, what I wanted to do was take the skills I had learned in customer service at Blue Cross that were, really asking people questions, digging deep, finding out what they needed and solving their problems. So I bring that to real estate because I know I never want someone to be in the wrong house. And you would be surprised how many people I've met over the years who have told me the realtor took them to the wrong area. Like somebody would insist that they go to JCP, Johnson Creek, and they work downtown. Their kids are in school, at Episcopal, and they're like, why are we in JCP?
Why are we going all the way out to JCP?
Yeah. So, and they didn't know the area, so they trusted the realtor. And I can't tell you how many times people tell me that. Because one of the first things I do when I'm talking to a customer is to say, this isn't your first house. Yeah. Tell me about your previous experience. What'd you love? And what do you wish your realtor had done better? And then I say, okay, at the end of our time together, I'm going to ask you again, based upon what you just said to me, how did I do?
Right.
And they're like, really?
What are some of the common answers are you getting there? If you actually charted that, or do you get some common things where people in relative to what they didn't like, or what ended up not being convenient about the last house they chose?
It's usually that it's the wrong area. And because they're not from here, they don't know.
Right.
Like,
Distance traveling to work and that sort of thing?
oh, like, let's put it this way. One of the people, they had gotten a relocation agent who was from Hilliard. Okay. So these people moved down from New York and they're now in Hilliard. You were from New York. Can you imagine moving to Hilliard? I mean, that's a shock.
Well,
right? It's a shock.
It's not all New York City. New York, New York. If they're from New York, New York,
They
and
were
then
from
moving
New
to
York,
Hilliard.
New York.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what just happened? You know,
Yeah.
how did that even come about? But, you know, sometimes our real estate agents, they get so able to talk about one part of town. Maybe they live in Mandarin and they know Mandarin better than anywhere,
Yeah,
and that's where they focus.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they know their little whatever anywhere. So that to me can be a problem. Right.
Yeah.
It really can be, because just because you know that area so well, I mean, obviously you're not going to pass the customer off to another agent who knows a different area like the beaches or St. Augustine or something.
Right.
So the trick is to learn as many areas as you can. Now, being native, that was easy, right?
Right.
But even so, it was when we got our radio show that I feel like we got exposed to 5 counties, right?
Right.
So we have a big listenership in Middleburg. I was like, Middleburg. Okay. I know
Wow.
where it is. I've been there, but I don't know it.
I haven't spent any time there.
Not
Restaurants, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to learn it. And so, you know, I've learned every single county over the decade, about 12 years that we've been doing the show.
Yeah.
So it's important, I think, to really get infiltrated into, I don't know if that's the right word, but to entrenched into the area that your customer wants to be in, to make sure that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Because if you're not, you need to step out of that deal.
Well, you bring up an interesting. So I always my wife when she's been in real estate now, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I guess, and I always worry about her. You know, just from an outside perspective,
Yeah.
you only know what you know what you're doing, and you're running your business. She's running her business, but you have to watch, like you said. Yeah, you become overly promoting a certain area of
Yes.
town, and then so you want to put everybody there because maybe
Yes.
you live there, your kids go to love those schools, and not really analyzing, you know, what's going on. You know, these people from New York. They are accustomed, you know, there's houses I know my wife would not buy for us because of how small it is, how close it is to other houses, that kind of thing.
Right.
Those guys coming from Queens, New York, they're used to reaching out and touching their neighbor.
Yes.
So it's not so you don't want to just put your personal feelings or visions on that. You really need to feel where they're at.
Yes, that is the important part of taking a meeting with your customer before you take them to see a house.
Yeah.
You know, as we're moving today, we're moving into buyer meetings, right? I've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
Because of my customer service background. It's been important to me from the get-go to find the right house for the right customer. At the end of the day, and actually I did it on my very, very first customer. I interviewed them, and they first bought a house, and I kept saying, I don't think this is right for you. And it turned out that after the inspection, they didn't buy it. And then I said, can I please take you where I think that might be best for you? And they're like, sure, go ahead. So I took them somewhere. They fell in love with the house. They fell in love with the neighborhood. And it was Halloween time. And they had been living like off DuPont Road, right, where there's no neighborhood. So I put them in a neighborhood. So at Halloween, the day after, the wife, who was a vice president for a very big corporation here, she called me and she said, I love you so much. You have no idea what you've done for my family. She said, you knew what I didn't know. We're so happy inside of this subdivision with other kids for our kids to play with.
Right.
And we are having the best life ever. And
Yeah.
I love you, and I will never forget what you've done for me.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. What I'm going to do. And
that's-
that was my first customer.
That's the ticket. I do want to I'm going to take a moment here because I'm going to reach out about Remy Graphics
yeah.
for these nice mugs, which it's in your gift bag there, which has the show logo on there. She will do one-offs. Dunya Taylor is the owner, Remy Graphics. If you have a closing and you just want to put John and Sally, you know, 2024 on there. She'll make one of those if that's all you need. You don't have to order a couple dozen, but I appreciate her co-sponsoring with me and making these beautiful mugs for my guests here on the show. And I'm just going to put RemyGraphics.com for you guys to go in there. She does more than the mugs.
Okay.
The laser engraving is what they do, and can do that for you. You mentioned talking about the buyers, and this has been important for you for a while.
Yes.
Do you prefer to do it face to face? Do you try to make that happen if it's possible?
The first meeting?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need that.
Mm-hmm.
I find that when you bring people into the office to have that face-to-face meeting, that they don't think it's a good use of time. They don't understand that it really is yet.
Yeah.
They'll understand it later in the process because it will help me take them exactly where they need to go and do what they need to do. So for me, doing it on the phone even has been sufficient because I can interview them thoroughly. I mean, I'm telling you that we could be on the phone an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's not a 15-minute phone call.
Yeah.
It's a long time. And I tell them, plan for this call. And so keep in mind that Zoom has only been really popular for us realtors since COVID. So I've been doing it on the phone for a very, very long time.
It is a talent. The phone being good on the phone is a talent.
It is.
That you have to learn. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So, all right. We're going. So you're stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
You said, "Hey, I got to get back busy." You enjoyed this experience with this realtor. I imagine you spent 25 years with Watson.
Yes.
She was with Watson.
She was my boss, actually, is who she ended up being.
Yeah. So, what was it like then for as a new agent? I don't know what experience you had in real estate. You just bought probably your first house, right? Was it your first house you bought?
No, it was our third house.
Oh, third house already?
House.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've bought and sold a few houses
Yes.
already. You walk in the first door. What are some of the things they were having you do, right out your first day?
Well, let me back up to 2 weeks before the first day.
Okay.
So one of my friends calls and she says, "I know you're getting your real estate license. Do you have it yet?" And I said, "Not quite yet." She's like, "Oh my God, I got to buy the house down the street." I was like, "I can help you." And she was like, "But you just said you weren't licensed." I said, "But my boss is licensed." So I called her real quick. I'm like, "Hey, I need help. Go write this contract, and give it back to me as soon as I come on board with you. And if I don't pass the test, then it's your customer." Yeah. And she just laughed and she was like, "You're going to be fun. I can tell how this is going to go." So I was like, okay. So we did that. So I started off with a listing, like a high dollar listing for just coming out with a license.
Right.
And I got to sell their house. So I had I had a purchase and the listing right out the door. So all of the agents in my office were going like, "What is up with her? How does she do that?" Right. But it's just who you know.
Yeah.
And so you have to get back to the basics for one thing. So when I got in, what was interesting is every agent in the office gave me some kind of advice. They're like, "Oh, you're wearing a business suit. You don't need a business suit." And I'm thinking, I don't have any other clothes. I mean, I can dress like a mom, or I can dress like I worked at Blue Cross.
Right.
So that's what I have.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You don't need that." I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, we'll see you in a couple of years, see how you're doing." Okay. And they were telling me, "You don't need a computer at home." I was like, I want a computer at home. Like, why are they giving me this advice? You know? And it just seemed like I was so gung-ho and I wanted to go all in so fast and everybody was trying to slow me down. So you have to keep in mind the time frame was 1998. Mm-hmm. We had just gotten rid of the real estate books. You've heard stories of those, right? Mm-hmm. The big books.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't take them out of the office and da-da-da. Luckily, I didn't experience any of that because the internet was happening right as I was coming along. So we had an MLS. What we didn't have is the ability to email those MLS sheets to a customer. We had that now. Back then, you had to print them off, put them on the fax machine, and fax them to somebody.
Right.
That's crazy, right, when you think about it. And I think one of the other things that was so unusual was that we had contracts. Our contracts were just a couple pages. I mean, seriously, a listing agreement was like 2 pages. A purchase agreement was 3. And they were those carbon pages. So you hand wrote, and then you took off the top, and that's the original, and you gave the copy to your customer, and that was it. And think about how crazy that is.
Yeah.
Our contracts today are 15 pages with addendums. You end up at like 22 pages. It's because of lawsuits and everything else has happened over time, right?
Yep.
That made us better at the business, but it's terrible for the customer.
Yeah.
It is, because it's a lot for them to take in, which is why they need a real estate agent to help them really understand
100%.
what all that's about.
Yep.
But I would say that what I did to be successful that first year, and I made more money my first year in real estate than my last year at Blue Cross, and I was in management. So what I did is I took everybody's floor. I decided floor duty was for me, and also
Which office is this office still exist for Watson? Or?
We call it the San Marco office, but it's at Lakewood.
Okay.
You know, the little office. It's a little boutique office, very small. And it's
and
right
you had
at,
walk-ins coming in.
We had Of course, you had walk-ins. You know why you had walk-ins?
Because people didn't know.
There was no internet.
Well, yeah.
Zillow didn't exist yet.
Yeah, right.
So if somebody wanted to buy a house, they had to call in. So the floor was very busy, or they would just walk in. And we had a lot of traffic. Yes. And so it was great. It's a different time than it is today, where everybody has the information before they call you,
right?
Of what they want to do and what they want to see. So, so I did a lot of floor, and I did a lot of open houses, and that was really, really, really fabulous. And then the other thing is, it's working the customers you have, and when I say working them from a business perspective, I'm asking them, do you have any friends that might need to buy or sell? You know, just working your sphere of influence.
Well, this first customer you had right away, the 2 weeks before you actually had your license, was this someone you worked with at Blue Cross?
No,
or
our
just
kids went to school together at Jacksonville Country Day School.
And you were just talking that you're going to get in real estate and...
Yeah. And so that's how that one came about. Actually, what's really interesting, I sold like 8 houses on that street. That I made more money on that street than I've made on any other street in Jacksonville, just over time. And the house that she bought, the very first house, I literally have had 6 transactions on that one house.
Wow.
Right?
So let's dig in a little bit. So we'll talk about the street. Did you work the street in a certain way? What did you do to get attention?
Just through her.
Just through her.
So, so this is in Cormorant Landing. And so so she bought a house and listed her house. Then her next door neighbor listed her house. And then I sold her a house out in Beauclair. And then there was another lady, I listed her house, and she moved to the Villages of San Jose. I mean, it was just... The street isn't that big either, okay?
Right.
It's just not that big. And I sold almost every single house on that street, I think, except 2 houses.
Because I think agents at you had a friend who was willing to take it, without you having, any experience yet.
Yes.
Which there are friends out there. Family doesn't always do that sometimes, but then there's friends that'll wait and see, are you going to stick with this? Are you any good at it before I actually give you my business? So you have to filter through these people. But you obviously
have to leverage your resources, right?
Yeah.
So you have to say, my broker is going to deal with you directly, like you got the best of the best.
Yeah.
And she'll take great care of you.
What do you think are some of the things? I mean, obviously you wowed her that she now has confidence to go and tell her friends and other people that are outside your circle. And so, but I think today we're so bouncing around, whether it's a loan officer or an agent, we're bouncing around and don't really focus. I wouldn't say a lot. There is a very fine group of people that a lot of them I've had on the show that understand that customer that's in front of them right now that they're working with, going around showing homes, whatever, that they're actually not only a customer, but they're actually the marketing piece for future customers.
They are.
And realizing that the referrals to win that person over to be your cheerleader is vitally important to a quick success.
It is so important. And to me, that's just the basics of what you do, right? So if you sell a house to someone and you never speak to them again, shame on you. That is just shame on you. There's no excuse that you don't stay in touch with that customer, that you don't ask them for the privilege to help their friends and family. And I think that that's part of what happens when you're new, is you don't have enough confidence to ask, right? So I just have this personality that I'm not shy. And so asking is part of what I do. And I close a lot of business because I ask for it. I'm not kidding. That probably sounds crazy, but
No, that's,
I've had more than one person tell me on multi-million-dollar houses, like, you got the business because you asked. The
Right.
other people we interviewed didn't even ask for the business.
right. No, yeah, I think any great sales book, I mean, that is part of it. And I think one of the things that you had listed there that I had on the list to talk about was also obviously follow up.
Yes.
You got to continue to follow up.
Yes.
What are some of the things that maybe you were doing now? Maybe you do them slightly different, but in the sense of following up with your past customers, what are some of the things you like to do and regularly been doing that you think
I like to call them out of the blue. Hey, how you doing? What are you up to? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Not necessarily on a birthday or whatever, just out
hey,
of the blue.
Right, out of the blue. Out of the blue. Because they need to know they're special, not because it's their birthday, because guess how many calls they're going to get on their birthday?
Right.
Lots of them.
Right.
So it's just an out of the blue. I was thinking about you. Something happened the other day. You popped in my mind, and I thought, I need to call you and see what's going on. How are you? And just catch up.
Right.
And then you do the Buffini, Buffini, Brian Buffini, do the close. Hey, before we get off the phone, do you know anybody who needs to buy or sell? Gotta ask.
And you can make that a joke, but you have to remind them sometimes that, like, hey, I'm in this is my business. This is what I do.
Yes.
Please think about me, because you never know. They could be talk to you on Friday, and on Sunday afternoon they're having a barbecue at their friend's house, and somebody's talking about real estate, and because you asked, because you made it, you probably laughed about the fact you asked about it, it's stuck in their head, and they remember, oh no, you need to call Angela.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have people that I've sold houses to in my first year that I still talk to. I mean, it's 25 years later. So, that probably seems weird, but, some of my customers, and this is the bad part about doing such great investigative work and finding the perfect house, is that they still live in that house I sold them 25 years ago.
It was too good.
It was too good. And, but, that's when you got to call and say, hey, don't you know any friends that, I could help do some business with?
Right.
Because they love me, and so.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago a house that you've sold like 6 times.
Yep.
So now not every one of the buyers were your customers. They probably came from another agent, right?
So, all right. So the way it started is I had that buyer 2 weeks before I got my license. She sold, so she was a listing. I had that buyer who bought her house. She sold. I had her as a listing. The buyer came from the same street.
Oh.
I had that buyer. And we just sold that house, and they moved to Atlanta. We just sold that house, and I did not have that buyer, but I had that listing.
Right.
Six transactions in that house.
Wow. That's
in a 25-year span.
That's, I think, I've mentioned it several times on the show. I think some agents get into it and they don't think long term. They get in the business and they're only thinking about maybe the next 60, 90 days, maybe.
Yeah.
They're not understanding that, I might sell this customer today, and it may be a year or two before they ever refer me somebody, or maybe they go and need to move or something again for whatever reason. We got obviously a lot of military moving in and out, but understanding how can I make that one customer into hopefully 3 to 5 transactions, referrals, buy, resell, that kind of thing.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Right. It's just keeping engaged with them and talking to them and saying, this is why I say, what was your experience with your last realtor? Okay, I don't want to do that.
Right.
At the end of this, I'm going to ask you, how did I meet your expectations? And when I ask them, how did I meet your expectations? My next question is, would you be willing to refer me to your friends and family?
Yeah.
And it's a pregnant pause. I'll wait. I want to hear yes or no.
Right.
Because if they say no, which no one has ever said, but if they do, I want to be, why? They always say yes. And so it helps set an expectation that we're done with this transaction, but we're not done. We're not done with each other.
Right. What have you, obviously the CRMs, all that stuff has changed many times in 25 years.
Sure.
What are you doing on regular? Obviously, there's some agents, they've got it set up so that they're getting a newsletter, they're getting this and that several times a month. I think it was Carrie Carpenter with Keller Williams. I want to say she somehow, was it 4 or 5 times a month that they're getting something from her? What have you found over the years? I mean, besides the out of the blue phone call, you're doing that. You probably don't do that every month, but maybe several times a year. What are you doing on a regular basis that has worked for you to stay top of mind?
You should not ask me that question.
Is that a difficult one?
Yeah, I don't do anything. I don't. I told you I like marketing, but
Right.
I find that those things don't particularly work.
Makes you feel good that went out, right? So I reached out to my email went out today.
Yeah,
Somebody got it.
I do the just listed and just sold postcards. That actually does work. People will call and say, "Hey, you got that house sold? What did it sell for? Okay, come list my house." I mean, that happens. But to just put people on a drip campaign, they're like, "Oh, email again."
Mm-hmm.
People are they have too much email right now,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I know I have too much email. And I think other people do too. And maybe they glance at it, maybe they don't.
Right.
And do we know? We don't know unless they disconnect us, unsubscribe. Otherwise, we don't know whether they're even looking at it or not. I did send out those magazines for Lifestyle magazine,
Mm-hmm.
where it has your branding on it and all that. And that works for a while. So it's sort of this coffee table thing that goes out once a month or once every other month. And
It's actually printed.
it's a printed magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll have recipes in it. It will have great houses in it. It will have lots of tips for things. And people like that. Did it get me a lot of business? Not as much as I wanted it to, but they
Right.
appreciated getting it. They'd call and go, "Where did you come up with that recipe?" And I'm thinking, I didn't. I bought that magazine. I don't write magazines. I sell real estate.
I mean, you never know. Social media today, I know Josh Rogers said it really well. Someone said to him, "I'm not getting any business from social media." So, well, then stop doing social media and see what happens to your business.
Right.
Because if you are a regular social media using it to stay top of mind, you never know when someone's ready to buy or sell or runs into someone who's ready to buy or sell.
Yes.
It could be tomorrow, it could be a year or whatever. You don't know. And maybe they don't like referring people. There's some people that are like that. They don't like referring people for whatever reason. But you just don't know when that rock is going to be unturned and produce something for you.
That's true. That's true. I feel like he is a great example of someone who embraced the whole platform, really, from YouTube videos to whatever, and he did it early, you know, and so I think he was kind of a leader in that, and it's worked well for him. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I get on Facebook and I'm talking to my friends. That still keeps me top of mind.
So you like to interact on Facebook?
I do.
Yeah. Because, that's what social media, social media is designed to be social. And that's what they all tell you. You need to be commenting and making significant comments to, someone's post. It's just say something other than just the like. You need to actually write a sentence.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do that.
Yeah.
So I have the heart of a teacher and the heart of a servant. And so every opportunity I have when I see something people have posted, I write something that's heartfelt, back to them. Something that says, "I see your situation. I feel you. Like, I'm here for you. I'll support you," or whatever. Or "Congratulations. That's so awesome. Look how your family's growing," or whatever it is. I don't just say congratulations.
Right. Because the algorithms is going to keep them and you in front of them and them in front of you, and keep it going. I want to jump over to the radio station. So
Sure.
You've been doing it a dozen years. You had a partner with you originally.
Yep.
What came about opportunity for the radio station? Was it something you thought of, or someone just came across you and said, "Hey, why don't you do a radio show? We got the spot at the radio station." How did that all come?
Oh, no. It wasn't that easy. So my partner had actually been a national speaker about real estate and had been on radio previously. And we were on a trip, and he wakes up and he says, "We're going to do a radio show." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a terrible idea. Why would we do that?" And he said, "For business." And I'm like, "How are we going to get business from radio?" I just could not comprehend what he was talking about. And so we went and we approached the president of the station. And we said, and think about this. This is 2011, at the end of 2011. And the gentleman saying to us, think short sales, foreclosures, that's what was happening at that point, right? Mm-hmm. He says, what are you going to talk about? We're like, real estate. And he said, there's not that much to say. And I'm like, well, we're going to turn that around and we're going to tell everybody
now you're
how
challenged.
great it
Now
is.
you are going to get out.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to make it be awesome. We're going to make people realize that it is real estate that is the base of all economy, mm-hmm. and that, you know, you got to get back in the game. And so he said, I'll give you the spot. I'll make that happen. We'll see how you do. I mean, he just still was not on board at all. So we went for like a month and we watched another couple do a radio show. And they did it at lunchtime, and she would come in, and she was an attorney. And so it was an attorney show. Mm-hmm. And we just watched their back and forth and how they communicated. And they just made it look so easy, frankly. And so we were like, okay, we got this. And so we went to write a show. And literally it took like 3 weeks. 3 weeks to get the ideas out of what we wanted to say, how we wanted to say it, da-da-da. Mm. So we come to the show. This is kind of funny. I don't know why I'm going in all this detail, but it was funny. The very first show was January 7th of 2012. And we're driving, and I'm just hyperventilating. I'm like, I cannot do this. Why did I agree to this? This is crazy. And so my sister calls from New York, and she's like, hey, I'm just calling to wish you good luck. I'm like, I can't even talk. I'm so nervous. I'm not going to be able to do it. And she started laughing, and she goes, we're going to pray with you. So we're a prayerful family. And so she prays with me. And in the meantime, he's gone inside the building to get us set up, and she's praying with me. And I was like, okay, I got it. I'm ready. And so I went inside, and I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, you ready? And he goes, no, I'm nervous. I'm like, what? You can't be nervous. Like, this is your idea.
You've done this before.
You've done this before. I said, but I tell you what, I'm ready now. And he said, I'm not. I'm nervous. I said, I put my hand on him and prayed for him. He's like, okay, I'm good. So we just did the show. And what we did is we actually planned 3 people to call in so that people would understand it's a live call-in show. Yeah. So in each segment, someone called in. Of course, we already knew what they were going to ask. And then in the 4th segment, the phone rang. And I was like, oh, that's not a plant. That's somebody really calling in. Oh, my gosh. And so when we answered the call, and I was so nervous, right, because I'm thinking, do I know the answer to whatever they're going to say?
Right.
Sure enough, guess what I did? Because I had already been a realtor 14 years
at that
point.
I was going to say, yeah.
And it was easy. So I looked at him, and I'm like, I got this. And so I answered the question, and I left there knowing beyond knowing. You know, I always say, I know that I know that I know. Mm-hmm. I knew that this was for us. And I knew that it would go for me in the way of helping people who I do not know. Because I don't need to have their business. I need to help them, right? Yeah. That's part, if I can just say it's part of my ministry. I like to help people. And so it goes in with I'm a servant and I'm a teacher. And so I can help people right there on the air with their question. Mm-hmm. And you don't know how many people call who say, I already have a realtor and they told me this, but I want to know if they're saying the right thing.
Right.
I know you're an expert.
Right.
But the interesting thing that this has afforded us over time is that when we go out to list someone's home, we're not up against anyone. They know us, right? Because we have been on, you know, when you come on someone's home or on their radio every Saturday, without fail, mm-hmm. what you get is a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know them from Adam, but they know us.
Right.
And so on our first listing appointment, that was a radio show listener, the guy throws open the door and he's like, the celebrities are here. And I'm like, what's he talking about? I did not get it at all. I mean, I really didn't understand what that meant to them. But mm-hmm. for people who do radio, they're called talkies. They don't watch TV. They only do radio. And so the people who are on the radio, they're really listening because they value their opinion. They want to learn new things, you know, and they want to be like right on the edge with information. So different than just watching the news.
Right.
Because this is usually a topic that you spend an hour talking about and, you know, you get really entrenched in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that doesn't surprise me, but I never actually thought about it, or I don't think I ever actually asked you the direct question of, what, I knew it got you business, but how much, and then when you expressed how they saw you as a celebrity, when you talk to these, had the Gallup group out of Fernandina Beach, Jacqueline and Jordan on.
They're with Engel and Volkers.
Yeah, and their background, they had a media background, and Jordan likes making the videos. And Jacqueline said very clearly, and I think it's a reel on my Instagram, about how, because they see him on the video, and of course you don't see them because you're a customer, because they're watching the video, but they immediately recognize you, and they're not in the business of meeting someone all the time. You do that all the time, so you can handle that, meeting someone for the first time, and how am I going to break the ice to start a conversation. They're not doing it every day. So when they do it through the video, or in this case, the radio show, they've already, started building a relationship with you.
Yes, they connect with you, and they relate to you because whatever you're saying is, a pleasant point for them. They're getting it. They're understanding, and they're thinking that we're, quite clever. So when you think about it, we have been on since January 7th of 2012, and we're the longest running radio show that I'm actually aware of.
At BOB or in Jacksonville,
that I'm actually aware of anywhere, right? So other people have tried radio before for real estate and haven't really figured out a way to make it work, and we have. So we're still here.
You're almost at 600 episodes. You're three shy here, so mid-July you'll be there. What do you think has been your ability, the longevity? Because I have my answer from the podcast side. What I'm going to ask you though, because like you said, I think a lot of people have that challenge, whether it is doing a podcast, or if they are, or just a video podcast. They don't have to put it out to Spotify and Apple and all that kind of thing. They could just do a video on YouTube regularly. But there is a mental mindset that you have to have. To me, I enjoy in listening what you're saying and dig a little deeper and learning more about you, where that's really the fuel of my fire, and I have a passion. And of course, real estate is the overall subject. We could talk about a lot. Real estate encompasses so many different things.
So many, yes.
Yeah, bring it in, but yet we all are doing that. There's a common thread. It's not, I could ask you, some questions out here and there about real estate, and I guarantee you'll be able to say something about it. But my inquisitive, I should have been a psychology major. That's I always tell people for years, I should have been a psychologist, because I enjoy, hearing your story, and then hearing stories from you that I don't even know. Type of thing. But what has been your fuel in keeping the program going?
Well, it's interesting because when I started with my partner, it was his vision, right? And then I adopted quickly when I realized we could help people. So for me, it keeps coming back to helping people. That's what I do. I mean, it's important to me to make a difference on the planet, and to, and if this is my little small way of doing it in the way of helping people in real estate. If you've ever been put in the wrong house, I'm telling you, it's valuable to have a realtor who will put you in the right house. So I take that really, really seriously. I don't open a door and not participate. I don't hear them say, "Oh, the Christmas tree's going there," and I write the contract. Like, I go back to their checklist and I say, "Okay, this is a great house for you. But you said you wanted a fireplace. We can't easily add one. Well, you can today, but you couldn't before, right? Like not a real fireplace. And, or it doesn't have this, or it's further commute than you said. Are you sure?
Is that gonna
I just
be
want to
okay?
make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Because at the end of this, you will know that you overcame your own thing, and I will know that you're okay.
Right.
I need to know that. Like, people understand I really, really care about them.
Right.
So I think whether it's on the radio or whether it's in person, I really care about people. And when you care about people and the life that they're living, and any little way that you can make a difference that makes their life better, that's worth the journey there. Yeah. It is for me.
Well, there's no doubt there's a lot of great real estate agents that know a lot. But obviously you take it to another level, that you're taking your knowledge and sharing it every week on the radio show.
You would be surprised. So, okay, so a real estate agent has to do 14 hours of continuing ed to keep their license every 2 years. We do that much every week.
Yeah.
You know, you have to watch local news, state news, national news, you know, what's going on in real estate news, just to be up on everything so that if somebody calls in and asks you a question, you got the answer.
Right.
Because
or has some sort of comment about it.
Yes.
That you,
Yes. Yeah. And I would tell you that maybe twice in 12 years, we've been asked questions that was so specific to that person, we had to handle it off the air.
Right.
But for the most part, every question has been answered right there on the spot, which makes you an expert. You know, it just does.
Yeah.
And when you read as much as we read and you stay up on it and you're having conversations, you'd be surprised how many other realtors come to you too. So while we have people who listen to the show, I keep saying we, it's my show now. But while I have people who listen to the show that are talkies, right? Mm-hmm. I also have realtors who listen to the show. And they're listening to see what did they learn this week that I don't know yet, right? And it's a quick way to get information.
Well, because you bring on a wide variety of people. It's people related in the real estate industry, which is wide.
Yes.
You know, whether it's a home inspector, appraiser, and everybody in between. There's so many different people to participate. You are digging out or exposing that person to these agents as well as consumers.
Yes.
And they're gaining a little knowledge. Like, oh, this might be a good inspector. I like the way he, you know, talked about how he does his business or whatever you were talking with him. I mean, and you're putting these people, giving them their moment. That's what Tom Reber says to me all the time. I give everybody their moment here on the podcast. Yeah,
you do. It's such a gracious thing that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't expect anything in return.
No, I don't. I appreciate it though.
Of course. That's what I think.
I got this nice mug from Anchored Real Estate right here.
But I think instead what you should say is for every person who comes on, you just have to give me one customer.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're still in business, by the way. And I don't want that to go unnoticed.
I was at a function at Landmark Title last week, and my wife just happened to be there as well. And it came up to me afterwards, and she goes, people are asking me, are you still doing mortgages, or are you just doing the podcast? People, I wish I got paid for the podcast. I would do it 24/7 if I could get paid for it. I do love doing it. But yes, referral would be nice.
Yes, a referral would be great. So for every agent who comes on here after me, or everyone who's been on before, if you're watching this, you have got to give Tracy a customer.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's a give back, right? It's a circle. It's symbiotic. It really is.
I have a lot of content on everyone that's been on, and we don't even utilize maybe 25% of it. I mean, like I said, you would talk for an hour. There's so many reels and so many things that could be social media content can be not reproduced. It's I'll think of the word here in a minute. Repurposed. That's the word. Repurposed.
Yeah, marketing.
Yeah. Because I think YouTube is a underutilized facet of, and LinkedIn's coming on strong. They're wanting more. I think more people ought to do more stuff there. Over the years, you know, this first person that hired, brought you into Watson. Mm-hmm. I assume they were a mentor for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How important do you think, you know, for agents coming on today, or maybe if they came on and didn't have one right away, to really bond with someone a little more experienced in seeing how they're doing business, to have a mentor in the business?
Well, I would tell you that I think having a mentor is the most important thing you can do after you hire a transaction coordinator or assistant.
Oh.
You know why? Because today there's so much we have to learn about the CRM or the digital signing or the, you know, whatever. I would get a licensed assistant and hit the ground running and never bother to learn those processes because you don't need them. If you have an assistant, you don't need them, and you can go sell. And then you become a really strong team. Really strong.
That's
team.
A great reel right there. Just what you said. Because the last episode that I had on was Samantha Cox with OpSuite. She offers all that, whether you want an assistant, marketing. She's even got coaching involved. You know, comes from running teams at Keller Williams Atlantic Partners. She was Keller Williams Atlantic Partners Director of Operations, but that's the service they offer. I totally agree with you. I think I think the brokers out there that are doing well, especially with recruiting, what's the first thing an agent wants? They want, do you have a transaction coordinator that's experienced and good that I can use as well? I don't have enough business to like employ them full time, but I can share. But my problem, I hear from some agents, oh, that transaction coordinator is not so good. Well, did you have a conversation with them? What was the expectations? Because every agent has a different expectation of their transaction coordinators.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Engel and Volkers has a great blueprint. I think they have a marketing person that works at every office. And so they're the front of the office, they're the front desk, but they also do marketing. So whether they're helping you with flyers or they're helping you with getting your website set up or they're helping you with whatever, they have people for that. So they have like 6 people that support us. 4 of them are marketing, 2 of them are transaction coordinators. So you can walk in the door and hit the ground running.
Yeah.
The only thing I had to learn was dot loop, because as long as I was at Watson, that wasn't one of the vehicles that we used. We used Transaction Desk, SkySlope. You know, we've been online longer than most companies were. But dot loop's a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to learn it. So I'm asking my transaction coordinator, can you just write this contract? Because I don't want to learn it. And she's like, yes, because I have, you know, when you change companies, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There just is.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. Now, does that mean I'm not going to learn it? Of course I'm going to learn it, because I have to learn everything. It's who I am. But, you know, I didn't need to know.
You could bog
it
yourself
day one.
down. You could bog
That's
yourself
exactly
down
right.
with all that stuff.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me because if you're trying to do something you know how to do, well, and first of all, think about this. We changed contracts in Northeast Florida. We've always had our own. They were great contracts. They were equal to the buyer and seller. They're gone now. And not yet now, but they're gone for us now.
Right.
And so when I came to a new company, had to learn all their new processes, get a new contract, because I wanted to start right away. I didn't want to start using my old contract so I wanted to start with the new one before anybody asked us to. And I had to learn the dot loop. So it was like information overload, right? It's a lot. And that's where the transaction coordinator was so helpful to me, you know, and I'm reaching out to her going, I don't have enough time to sit here and figure this out. Just write that contract for me. You know, you pay for that service, but it frees up your time. Yeah. And you can get on to the next customer. It's very helpful.
Income generating activities, because that transaction coordinator is using dot loop every day because they're working with multiple agents. Yeah. So it becomes regular for them versus, you know, an agent who, you know, you have a deal now. Oh, hey, how do you do that? Okay, I got that one done. And then it might be 2 or 3 weeks
before you write another
one. You're like, oh, how did I do that?
How did I do that?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you start stressing about it and your mind starts going over here and it's taking away with what you really need to be doing. And that's entertaining the customers and focusing on their needs.
The first contract I wrote at Engel Volkers was on a weekend. So I didn't have access to my TC, my transaction coordinator. And I had to wing it, figure it out by myself. And so luckily my customer was a repeat customer, because I'm telling her, like, thank God that you know that I'm amazing. Yeah. Otherwise you would think I'm the worst realtor ever right now because I can't figure out dot loop. And so you know what I did? I just printed it out, hand wrote the contract, sent it over to the other agent, explained my situation. She was laughing, of course. And she was great. She, you know, was very patient through that. But it was fine. I mean, you find your workaround when you need a workaround, right? Yeah. But I'm not going to spend hours trying to learn something on a Saturday night just so I can say I got it in dot loop.
I want to run down some of these things that you had put across your bio. And I want us to think about, because these are your things that you feel is important for a real estate agent, I think, is if I want to summarize some of these things, but how you do it. So you made a statement. I'm going to basically repeat the statement back to you. Okay. But, you know, how do you make it work in your day-to-day business? Because we can talk about networking with all your friends and family, but we only have so much time in the day. weekends are only so long. Can't go out with everybody out to dinner. Can't have everybody over for a barbecue every month. Whatever. But just a few things that really put the rubber to the road. That if an agent's listening today, go, oh, that's how Angela does it. I'm going to add that to my repertoire.
For me, it really is about using social media in a way of staying in touch with people with that soft touch, but a big comment, right? Because then when people go, wow, she wrote a big comment, it means she cared about what I had to say, and she's really responding to me. It's not just to get in the algorithm, whatever you just said. It's not really just that. It's really to let them know I'm here, I'm watching, I care. Whatever that is.
Well,
right?
it's almost like an instantaneous little note card. Like in the old days, you may have handwritten like a little note. Hey, I understand you know, whatever happened in your life, and they don't get that till 3, 4, 5 days later.
Yeah.
They're instantaneously getting it on Facebook.
Yes.
And that's how you're using it.
Yes, I am. And so whether that's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, I like them all.
Right.
Yeah.
Making good comments. I think this one here is, I don't even know, I wouldn't even say it's 50-50 for some agents. I think agents probably all could say they could do better at this one, and that's meet customers everywhere you go.
Wear your name. I don't even have my name tag on because I didn't know about being on the podcast. But I have my name tag on always, and I'm always dressed for work because that's important, right? When people see me in a grocery store and they see I'm dressed for work and I'm wearing a name tag, they want to see, where do you work? And if they start to ask you about what's the interest rate, how's the market, people don't ask that unless they're going to buy or sell. That's the only time they ask. They really don't.
Or they have
care.
some interest in you. And it's an icebreaker because they see you're a realtor.
Yeah, most people don't have interest in it. I don't feel like that's it.
I was thinking from the name tag standpoint. When I'm in the grocery store and the cashier rings up, I always, I see their name tag and I say, thank you, Sally.
You call them by name?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I don't do that. Some people love it. Some people love receiving that, and some people don't. And you don't ever know who that's going to be. But it does make a contact, right? It does make a, and I think especially if you're saying something very pleasant to them and use their name in that sentence, it is a favorable experience,
right,
even if they're the type of person who wishes they didn't have their name tag on, right?
Right.
So, everywhere we go, when you see someone, just because they have a name tag on, does not mean they're an extrovert and they want to talk to you.
Just work told them they had to wear it.
But I will tell you, where I got my best training on that whole thing was at Publix. So when I was, after I worked in my parents' company, my dad's like, you got to go work for somebody else. So I went to Publix, and I was so shy. I mean, Tracy, I don't know if you can tell I'm not shy now, but I was then, and I couldn't even talk to people. My manager would come up and say, smile, please smile. I'm still nervous. Okay, by the time I left Publix, I would have people waiting in my line to come through when there were other cashiers that had no one in line. That's the kind of impact. That's the kind of change that I made at that company.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is.
So you're working all the time, and if you're pleasant and you're talking to people, this is me talking to them. It's not them talking to me, right? Because I'm making them feel special.
Right.
And that's what I do with my customers too.
Yeah.
But it started at Publix.
Wow.
And that was a long time ago. I was 16.
And such a turnaround at a young age to learn that. Wow.
It was one of the best customer service experiences I ever had. Better than Blue Cross in the way that you can make that really personal contact. But it's face to face, and you smile and talk to them and ask them how their kids are and what's going on.
Well, I mean, you've taken that through your entire career.
Yes.
I mean that's the basis of building a relationship with your real estate customers. I like this one here because I think it's very important. Of all the top agents that I've had on, collaboration is one of the big things. And when I saw this line, I think this is important, not only in your office, but he said, make friends and be helpful with others in your office. But I think that even goes outside, even other people with other brokerages. You never know who's going to be on the other end of the deal.
You got that right.
Yeah.
So the reason I said in the office, first of all, is because as you come new into an office, you don't know anybody, and everybody there knows more than you know. They just do, even if you're a seasoned realtor. They know more than you know because they know their processes inside the company. It's what you don't know yet, right? You're going to know it, so befriend them and learn it as fast as you can. Knowledge is power. The faster you can get it, the better you're going to be, period. And so I think it's really important to collaborate in that way. Like, I want to go on vacation. Well, I just joined Engel and Volkers. Who's going to cover my business? I got to get that handled. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I've already asked someone, and starting to work on that. But those are the little things that you need to collaborate. Plus, as you come in as a new agent, inexperienced, everybody in that office has already done multiple deals. They can help you. If your broker's not in that day, it's a weekend, which is when we do a lot of business, then you have somebody sitting there who can say, oh, yeah, I can tell you what you need to do. And they help, and being helpful that way is amazing. It's priceless.
Yeah.
It really is priceless. But as far as the other agents, when I have a cross sale, first thing we're going to do is be friends. Yeah. We're going to be friends. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, it's important because if you have a terrible relationship with the agent on the other side, it's going to be a nightmare of a transaction. Yeah. But if you befriend them right out of the gate, then what happens is it's important that we get our customers. We're a transaction broker state, okay? It's important that we get our customers to the closing table. It's a collaborative effort. It doesn't mean I'm going to hurt my customer in the process or that they would hurt theirs. We're helping everybody. Let's get to the,
get to the goal line.
Get there. Yes, we work together, and that is the best way.
I know you've done enough transactions that somebody on their other end's been combative.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. What do you do with your personality and your knowledge to try to tame that down, to bring them to that mindset that you just had, that, hey, we have a buyer and we have a seller. Someone wants to sell the house, someone wants to buy the house. We need to figure out how everybody can come to some sort of agreement and get the closing.
I have had a nightmare agent and had her 3 times in my career. So,
has it gotten better over the? I can't say.
It's a transaction broker who's acting like a single agent, right? And not even kind while they're doing it. It's unfortunate, but whatever made that person that way, it's gotten them through their career. I mean, this is a long-time agent. And but the bad thing is that they get a reputation in the business, And what you have to be careful about is agents will not show your listing. Not that we should do that. That's unethical. Right. But that could happen, right? I would never do it.
Put it at the bottom of the list.
I would never do it, which is why I've had 3 cross sales with them.
It was just a couple of years ago where you're getting multiple offers and you got this other person and you're going, I need to present to my seller the best offers, but I got this pain in the butt over here.
That's exactly right. And you know what? The customer wants to know that. Like, well, what agent do you think's best to work with?
Right.
Interesting question.
Yeah.
So I do think that for me, I like to just win people over. And so I do a whole lot of sugar with them, You get a lot more with sugar and honey than you do with vinegar. So, so we're just going to be sweet to them and we're going to get them to the closing table.
The next one you had on here, it's important to preview all of the properties that you can, make appointments for vacant homes. You mean you go out on your time to go out and preview this home just so you know, because it's a neighborhood you're working, so maybe it's a house you've never been in, you want to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Don't let something come on in a market that you say you work, like you work Mandarin at, 300 to 600. Go see all the houses.
Right.
So when somebody calls you and they say, maybe they call on your listing, but then they say, oh, well, I'm going to call the other listing that's, in the same neighborhood. Oh, no. You don't need to. I've been in that house. How can I help you?
Right.
You become the expert. You have to go out and see the property. When you go on a listing appointment, before I go on a listing appointment, if I'm in a new neighborhood, I go see all the competition. I mean, I need to. So when I walk in there and go, yeah, I saw that house, but did you know it smells like dog? Like, that's going to be minute, for them to get it sold.
It doesn't have this or does have that, and you don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great
Now
advice.
You're the market expert.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about seeing the inventory. So, and especially if you're new to the business, go see every listing that you have inside of your own office, so that if you're working floor, when somebody calls, you can say, I've seen that house, so tell me what you're looking for. Oh, yeah, that would be a good fit. Or there's another one that's real similar to it. Why don't we go see them both?
Right. That is really great advice.
Yep.
I've never heard that. Not that you're the only one that does that. I bet you there's very few that do it, but that's really great advice.
Oh, it's a great use of time.
Yeah. Because well, you looking back over 25 years, like you said, that one house you sold, 6 times. You sold a good amount of the houses on that one particular street.
Yep.
You know all those houses and can make a comment about anyone, what they have, what they don't have, and be able to, like I said, people hire a real estate agent for their knowledge. Yeah.
Right.
And
what do we know that you don't know?
Yep.
That's why you're hiring us, right?
Yep. Great. That's a great tip, especially for new agents who may not be very busy right now, to plan so many hours of each week to go see some, these other houses in the areas they want to work.
Well, let's just admit it, though. There's some seasoned agents that aren't that busy right now.
Well, we know that too. I was trying to be nice.
They should go out and see the competition.
Learn everything you can about the real estate business. And I'm going to go back because you said something about the 14 hours. It's more important than you do 14 hours every 2 years. You need to be, like you said, the new contract. You may want to go take the new contract class 2 or 3 different times from 2 or 3 different people.
I already have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all that I've used since I transferred to Engel and Volkers, which was just April.
Right.
It's the only contract I'm using. Like, I decided I'm going to immerse myself in what's coming before it gets here. I don't want to wait until it's time.
Right.
I have to do it today. And so, there's a lot of people who go home and relax. I don't go home and relax. I go home and grab out my contract and think, I want to be able to say this without looking at it the way I used to with my old contract. I want to be able to say paragraph 17 says blah, blah, blah. you know, I don't want to have to read it and then tell them what it means.
What are some of the places that you go to gather knowledge? Obviously, NEFAR's got got regular schedule. You go in there, look at any week, and this is the classes we have. Or St. Augustine Board, they got stuff going on. But there's so many other places. Where are some other places you like to try to find where knowledge is being given on any given day?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm a big fan of Inman. Big fan of Inman. Like, I will watch their, when they get together for their meeting, I'll watch it virtually. Like, I might not travel there, but I'm going to see what they're up to, because they always have people who are cutting edge, who are right at the forefront of things and making changes, and being part of the process. To do like the Florida Association of Realtors, like there's so many places for content. The National Association of Realtors, KCM, Keeping Current Matters. I go to a lot of resources, and then
You're a reader. You like to be.
Yes.
You utilize that computer to pull out information from all over.
I do. It's critical to know what other people are thinking. So how do I know what you're thinking if I don't know what's going on in the market?
They're coming from New York. You don't know what they're reading.
Right. So, yeah, I really like to read a lot and make sure that I know what's going on. And I like to listen to podcasts, too. When I'm in my car, people who are talking about things, I want to know, what are they saying? I always want to have my finger on the pulse. I don't want someone telling me something and I'm hearing it for the first time. I'm like, oh, no, that's bad. I should have known that,
Well, excuse me. Me doing the podcast, you're doing the radio show. That's like your extra fuel. But I think what we realize, because we're having these conversations, we become that influential conduit. We are hearing from all these different places because obviously we want to put on a great show. You're researching because you don't want that person to call in and catch you off guard.
Right.
But what you found over time is that's also helped you one-on-one with your customers, because you just sound so much more knowledgeable because you've taken in so much more.
Yes. The value, now, this is something I want to say. The value of knowing, like, the contract, for instance, and knowing it forward and backwards, and knowing your process. What's the process? Write the contract, get the binder. I want to be able to talk to my customers about that in the car, right?
Right.
That's a great use of time, because we could chit-chat about stuff that doesn't matter all day, but I'd rather have them hear that information in the car before we write an offer. That way, they already heard it. And I'll say, remember we talked in the car about how you have to get the binder and where that goes? And it's time. This is what we're going to do now. So you can't do that if you don't have that information in your head. Right. You can't talk about it in the car. So you have to memorize it, really learn
Become
it.
comfortable with it.
Become very comfortable talking about it and talking about processes. And especially if you're helping relocation people, because where they come from, it's done different. I don't care where they come from, it's done differently.
Right.
And so then you have to hear what they're used to and translate it to, okay, well, that part of the process, this is how we do it.
Right.
Like in New York, they have realtors and then they both have attorneys.
Yeah.
Why? Our way works so good. You don't need to do that.
A lot of lenders don't want to do business in New York just simply because of the hassle and the time. And
yes, it prolongs the process. It makes it way more expensive. I mean, there's so many reasons that it's not necessary. But try to convince a New Yorker who's bought 6 or 7 houses in New York that you don't need an attorney.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's such really great advice for anyone listening, to be able to have that. I'm going to say water cooler, car talk, whatever, but you are already in conversation, just bringing up things that are on the contract. So when you sit down, you're not saying something that's shocking to them.
Right.
They've already absorbed whatever that hit might have been in the car and a casual thing when you probably weren't even talking about a specific home at the time.
Exactly. We weren't talking about a home at the time.
Right.
We were talking about a process. And see, one of the mistakes I think people make is realtors get nervous and they talk about what they know, which is themselves, right? No, don't do that. The people don't care about you yet. They will eventually care about you in that way, but right now they want to know you care about them.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you. So shut up about yourself. Just talk to them about them and interview them, get everything you can out of them. And when you feel like there's a lull in conversation, it's not time to tell them about your kids and the ball games. It's time to talk about the contract and their process, because they're coming with fears. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They need to know what they don't know.
And you got them covered.
And then you got them covered, and then you have their trust and their loyalty, and they're not going to go do business with anyone else.
Well, that actually covered number 6, which is know your contracts.
Okay. Yep.
So, this I think is very important. This next one, I've over the years have dealt a lot with condos. My wife and I own a half a dozen of them, and it's not specifically condos, but this made me think of the condos. There's a lot of agents that don't understand condos are a little different animal, and you need to know whether or not some lending can be done on the specific, if you're especially going to list it, but if you got a buyer, these types of things. Stay up to date with real estate changes, local, state, and national news. And there's a lot of things going on in the condo area because of the tragedy in Miami and so forth. And that's having an effect on our market. But even over the years, just having agents list a condo or have a buyer for a condo and not realize, they're under a lawsuit. Why are they under a lawsuit? That changes whatever. Lenders don't like condo associations to be under lawsuits. It affects because it's the whole building, and it affects the value of those units and so forth.
Does.
And if you're going out there, you got to do some research, get their financials and so forth. Which now they're making them to make them public record, so agents have more access to them, or the consumer can access and see, hey, what's going on in this condo, because before they didn't have access. They had to pay to get those documents.
That's right.
Which I think is a great thing for you and I in getting those, because someone wants to finance a condo, I got to go on their management website, pull it up, or we actually have a team here at town. We just send them and they actually get us that information. It's becoming more readily available. It's getting better and better, but you need to know these things. Like you said, know what's going on and the changes that are going on.
Well, let me give you an example, even of condos, because that's a really complicated topic lately. But I always ask the listing agent, and a lot of times now we have people who've never lived in the home. They're a landlord. Well, honey, if you were a landlord for 10 years, you still know what you did and didn't do to that condo. Okay,
right.
But I know you want to sign that. I didn't never live there. I'm not telling you. Okay, I'll call another listing agent. in that same building. I'll say, hey, I have a customer who's looking at this building. Can you let me know what's going on there? How's the financials?
Right.
Are there any lawsuits going on? Where can I get a copy of the condo docs? Do you have one? Could you just send it to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, you're just talking to people, and realtors are so helpful to each other. We are, because we're all in this together at the end of the day.
Yep.
We just are. I know we're all competition, but the truth is we're all here for the same goal, and there's plenty of business out there for everyone who's working.
Right.
So there's 12,000 agents, but they're not all working.
Right.
So for the ones of us who are working, there's plenty of business out there. We're not really competition in that way, unless you're trying to list the same house as someone. So, calling people, and making those relationships with other realtors, so helpful.
Yep.
So helpful.
Yep. But, if I think any agent who is working condo complexes, you need to be abreast of what's going on right now.
Yes, you do.
And then how does that affect that specific complex?
Yeah.
How do I get an FHA or VA loan approved for that? I think that's a whole nother subject. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole.
Well, wait, let me give you another example that I just ran into yesterday. My customer said, I want to go see this little place. I look at him like, it's a mobile home, 22 years old. So I called the listing agent. I said, hey, you mentioned on here you can take conventional, FHA, VA, USDA in Duval County. Like, can you tell me what's going on? Are you sure of what you wrote, that all of that can happen? He's like, you should probably check with your lender. I'm like, seriously? You put it in the MLS and you don't know it to be true?
Yeah.
I would have called the lender first and said, can I get a loan for a 22-year-old, mobile home?
Well, I will say this, being experienced working for other lenders, there's probably someone that will do the financing for it. Some will only do double wides. So single wide, you want to make sure. But I have always tried to, whenever I had someone call in about a manufactured home, most lenders have, I call it a cheat sheet, is here's our overlays. This is what we will do. Because manufactured homes, they're another unique animal. And some lenders only want to deal with, it's got to be, 20 years or less. It's got to be a double wide, whatever. You want to find that information out before you you post it, and you probably want to have 2 or 3 lenders that that
on
like
speed dial.
Because they may do USDA, but they may not do USDA manufactured homes. You never know. So you need to have several contacts
USDA
there.
in Duval County?
Yeah. Not in Duval County. I don't know of any area
in
Duval
County.
That's
I'm like, he does not know what he's doing.
I could pretty much bet good lunch on that. That wasn't They're still in St. John's, and we know Nassau. There's some USDA areas.
And Clay County too.
Know your numbers, inventory, interest rates, cost of home, insurance. I mean, this is really vital. Especially insurance now, right? We got to get insurance quotes like right up front now. We can't wait till the week before.
Right.
Yeah.
It should be part of your 10-day due diligence or 7-day due diligence or 15-day due diligence, whatever time frame you agree to in the contract. It needs to be your first phone call.
Yeah.
You call the home inspector and you call the insurance company same day. Make that happen, because it is so important right now with affordability, right? So you think you can afford this house if the insurance was maybe $1,200 a year. Oh my gosh, you're in a flood zone. It's $4,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
The numbers can just change on a dime, and now you can't afford it at all. Well, it's better you know that on day one than you waited 2 weeks to find out. And so, and I don't think that we've always talked about insurance this way in my career. I don't think so. It was fine to get it, right before we closed. But it is not okay today to do that. So
100%. We're dealing with it on the lending side.
Yep.
Get that insurance quote. And the information, because I've had some insurance agents on, the information they have access to.
Yeah.
Anything that needs a permit in that house, you need a permit to put a hot water heater in.
Yep.
So they're looking that up. They know when the last permit was. The roof, obviously, are two biggest things, amongst other things. The plumbing in some of the older homes.
Yeah.
When was the last time any electrical work has been done in there? These insurance companies know this stuff. They have to. I don't think they knew it 5 years ago. They didn't nowhere near what they know today.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously, I had Cindy Hayden on, who was the chair for NARS Insurance,
Yep.
and she went in the detail what has caused some of this, increase. Hopefully, we tamper this back down to some more reasonable thing. But we're in a gut check of
Yes.
insurance here in the last year or two.
Well, luckily, we're having like 6 new, maybe even
We got some
old
new
insurance companies returning to Florida, right?
Yeah.
They had left because of the getting sued and whatever, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But they're coming back. And so that's going to help us with pricing a bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So we need more competition in that space.
When you're going, because you have on here like inventory and so forth, I imagine a lot of times like you're going on, especially today, listings are staying on a little longer than
They
we've
are.
experienced in the last 2 or
Yes.
3 years or
Yes.
longer. They're staying on there. How are you strategizing? And obviously, because you know your numbers, how are you presenting that to that person who wants to sell the house? So you come up with a good price point, because I think you would agree, if you're priced $20,000 over what that house you get, you're probably not anyone going to call you.
That's right.
It's that thin of a
That's
line
right.
on some of these places.
Well, and I've been working from that idea for a while now. So, a lot of times you go out on a listing appointment and the seller will say, I had the best house in the neighborhood. I'm like, sure you do. So I would like to list it, above what you say is what it's going to sell for. I'm like, let me tell you how that's going to go. I mean, we can do it, but
Yeah.
it won't be fun for you or for me. So let me tell you why. And I go through the steps of, this is what happens. People are going to look, there's other houses in your neighborhood that are the same square footage. They're going to pick the ones that's 20,000 less because they can. And so unless you really do have something valuable, like today, that would be a really great lot or a swimming pool, and maybe the other
Three-car
ones
garage
don't have.
and the others don't have.
Three-car garage, yeah. Things that really the other houses don't have. If you have that situation, yes, you may get a little more. But if you look like everybody else, cookie cutter little neighborhood, everything's the same, you're not going to get 20,000 more.
Just because your kitchen was just renovated.
You're not.
Not gonna happen.
It's going to give you some value back, and it's actually going to make your house be preferred over the other ones because you do have that beautiful kitchen. But it's not likely to be dollar for dollar of what you spent on that renovation.
Right.
And so that's what you kind of need to know. If you have a cash buyer, that makes it easier. But if they're getting a mortgage, I feel like the appraisers are working with data that's, of course, behind us, right? And so they only have what they can work with. So while prices are appreciating still in our area, you still have that they're using older data.
Well,
so there's a lot of challenges.
And you do have to watch out too. I mean, there are some price reductions. Some listings are staying on a little bit longer. People need to move, so they price reduce. And you go and put that out there, and the neighbor down the street does a price reduction, and the appraiser comes, is like, well, we just had a price reduction over there, So you got to feel that out. But I think if you really have that great house that you think you have, if you list it competitively, you're probably going to get a couple offers and maybe get an extra $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever.
So that's what I try to do. I try to get people to list it at what it's really worth instead of listing over. And that way you will get multiple offers. Yeah. And the whole secret is to have your house look gorgeous, like it's a model home. Because if we can make it look beautiful and you have the extra bells and whistles and we price it at true market value, you will get multiple offers and you will not sit on the market, and it will be sold the first week.
Yeah.
So,
this is my last formal question because we've been going here a little while. Niche your marketing. Become the go-to agent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, it's harder for me to do that because I have the radio show. I go where my listeners are, right? So I don't care what they have to sell, what price point, whatever. I love them. Niche. Riverfront. Can you name a riverfront agent? I bet you can. Oceanfront. Can you name an oceanfront agent? I bet you can. Doctor's Lake. Can you name an agent who's got it wrapped up? Yes, you can. If you figure that there's something that you can do better than anybody else can do it because it's the only thing you chose to focus on, meaning you forego the other opportunities, like this is your jam, this is it, you're all in, you will create a niche market.
Or become the expert in that
you are the
neighborhood
expert.
or that area. Yeah.
When you're the expert and everybody knows it, everybody's going to say, oh my gosh, you have to call Angela. She's the best in this. Don't call anybody else because she knows it better than anybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You will stay in business.
Yeah.
For the duration. But when you start doing other little things and you get outside of what you do best, you're going to lose your spot because someone else is coming up behind you who wants to be what you are.
Well, I think the mindset of a seller is that, Angela's an expert here. I want to list with her because she's probably got people who already want to buy my house because everyone knows she's an expert in this area. So she's probably got people just hopefully waiting for a house like mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So, a niche could be a school district. It could be, there's 1,000 things to think about. Just working doctors. There's all sorts of things where you can be the go-to. And because other people you've serviced them already, that when they know people who are just like them, they're referring you.
Yeah.
It's done.
100%.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add today?
Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate it. This has been a great show, and anyone listening, I hope you appreciate it. Please leave a review. But
only if you're going to say something nice.
This has been jam-packed with some really great knowledge. I think any agent out there can pick up at any level of where they're at, years, new, been doing it 5-10 years, can pick up something from this show here somewhere in there. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of nuggets. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's really been fun, and this is my first time.
And you weren't nervous at all.
Ever doing a podcast or ever being on camera. So thank you for making